James Gunn and DC knew what they were doing with this. They were like, look, we need to get Michael hooked on this show in episode 1. And with this right here, I need to see more of that in season 2 and live action. And welcome to my Safe Gayven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for clicking on another video and joining me here on the BlackGayComicGeek channel. If this is your first time checking out my videos, checking out my channel, let me introduce myself, because my goal is to get to at least 10,000 subscribers by the end of this month of January. I am at like 9,650 subscribers, so I'm like, let's go. Less than 400 subscribers. Let me get to that mark of 10,000 by the end of the month. So my name is Michael. I call myself the Black Gay Comic Geek, and I always say the things that I love to talk about on my channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic, or any variation of the four. So this channel, I mostly like to talk about fantasy, superheroes, comic books, action, sci-fi, horror. Every so often, I'll step out of that and review like a regular movie. And of course, I like to talk about black representation and queer representation, or about these movies through a black queer lens. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you think representation matters and through representation it equals normalization, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and also hit that like button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm, getting this video out there, getting my channel out there, so I can hopefully hit that 10,000 subscriber milestone and beyond, to infinity and beyond. So with that said, guys, Creature Commandos just ended today. Today was the season 1 finale. And so we're going to review spoilers for season 1 of Creature Commandos. Season 1 started during the holiday break or last month, and I was like, I'm taking time off. So I'm gonna just wait till the show is over, and then I'm gonna just do a full review of the entire season. So with that, let's get spoilers into season 1 of Creature Commandos. And the synopsis for Creature Commandos is, after the events of The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, where it is now illegal for Amanda Waller to use human operatives, she finds a loophole where she assembles a Black Ops team of monsters led by Rick Flag Sr. And with that said, this show is the first step into James Gunn and Peter Safran's DCU. Now that it's getting a complete reboot and overhaul, this is the first step. So this show is going to be canon in the DCEU. Granted, Peacemaker season 1 is canon as well, but they're going to rework that with season 2 because Zack Snyder's The Justice League showed up in that, so they're going to like rework some of that. But Peacemaker is also canon in the DCEU, but this show is that first step in this new DCEU, which they're calling, the first half is going to be called Gods and Monsters. And then the next major thing for the DCU, not the DCEU, DCEU was the other one. This is DCU. So the next step after this is going to be obviously the Superman movie that comes out in June or July of this year. And Rick Flag Sr., who is played by Frank Grillo, will also show up in the Superman movie. But anyway, let's get into it. Again, spoilers. The thing about Creature Commandos, especially after James Gunn started making more movies for DC, and the reason I think that if done right, DC could quickly catch up to Marvel in terms of like public fanfare and maybe not so much box office, because they have a long way to go to catch up in terms of box office, because Marvel has an almost 20-year start. But in terms of fanfare and public reception is the fact that, unlike Marvel, to a certain extent, I feel like DC is way more willing to take risks with their properties. Why am I saying wrist? Like your wrist. Risks with their properties in terms of like their tone and the outlandish nature of their storylines. Because like even with this show is fully rated R. Something like James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is fully rated R. The Peacemaker is fully rated R. Granted, this isn't DCU, but Harley Quinn is fully rated R. But Marvel, the MCU, has always kind of like backtracked and not really wanted to go the rated R route. They even talked about how maybe Blade might not be rated R. It wasn't until we got Deadpool and Wolverine, and it was only because the other Deadpool movies were rated R that we got a rated R Deadpool movie. Even something like Moon Knight. Moon Knight should have been way more darker and more rated R than it was in the DC. And I feel like that was one of the failings of Moon Knight. It was they shied away from a lot of the blood and gore. Not to say that was the only, like, not to say if Moon Knight was rated R, it would have been great. It would have been better, but like, they're not willing to take those type of risks with their properties and with their characters. And it just goes to show that they're willing to do something different. They're willing to step outside the box. And I feel like with this show, Creature Commandos, it's showing that. And ironically enough, like, you think about James Gunn, he was known for putting Marvel, not that Marvel wasn't on the map, but he was known for putting Marvel on the map more so with Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is basically kind of the same thing. This is DC's version of Guardians of the Galaxy. These weird, monstrous-like creatures that are being put in the cultural zeitgeist and being given love and respect and relevance. Because who's checking for a Creature Commando storyline prior to this show? Now I'm like, I really like the characters of the Bride, or even like Weasel, who we first saw in the Suicide Squad. After episode 4, you're just like, oh man, now I feel for Weasel. And you know, with Rocket and things like that, James Gunn loves his anthropomorphic animals. But with that said, I do got to throw in a slight caveat in terms of like DC could potentially catch up to Marvel, only if they're also not just willing to take risks with their properties, but also step outside of Batman, because I think that's DC's biggest problem in both animation, live action, comics. They cater a lot towards Batman fans. And yes, Batman comics sell, and Batman and Superman, but even more so Batman than even Superman. Yes, Batman comics sell. People love Batman. Batman is a hugely recognizable character, but they have other characters within DC, like even this show, Creature Commandos, it still connects to Suicide Squad, which still at the end of the day kind of connects to Batman, which you did see Batman show up in a cameo in this show. So I'm also hoping with this DCU, it doesn't ultimately just become the Batman universe with auxiliary characters. Because even this, like, we haven't even gotten an announcement to a Wonder Woman series. Like, there's supposed to be the DC Trinity. We're getting Supergirl before we even get Wonder Woman, even though they mentioned Themyscira in this series. So clearly Diana's around somewhere. But anyway, getting more into the series, the animation for the show looks great, especially like the fight scenes. You think about the first episode, the fight between Dr. Phosphorus and Rick Flag, and the fact that Rick Flag kind of won that fight despite the fact that Dr. Phosphorus is deadly. You can't even touch this man without burning your hands off. But it also kind of shows that Dr. Phosphorus has enough control that he can touch you without burning you, because there were moments that he touched Nina's character. There was a moment that he touched the Bride and they didn't burn. So he clearly has control over it, but the guy is powerful. The guy is deadly. And considering how powerful and deadly and evil and how vicious he is, and then even when you get to episode 4 with the Weasel episode, I feel like a show like this definitely works better in animation, especially considering the level of kills and the type of kills and the way that they killed characters in this show. It makes it a little bit, even though, you know, I love my blood, sex, gore, magic, for the general audiences, it makes it a little bit more palatable being animation than live action, especially when like Dr. Phosphorus like grabs somebody's mouth and like basically burn through their whole body. Like, again, granted, they do a lot of that in The Boys, but I still feel like for this particular case, especially for the first introduction to DCEU, it would be more palatable to most people as a cartoon, basically, than if they did it live action. But I think all the voice actors were great. And James Gunn said, like, he cast these actors knowing that at a certain point, they are going to show up in live action in the DCU. So like I said, we're going to see, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Rick Flag Sr., we're going to see Frank Grillo show up. Like we said, we're going to see him as Superman. Although part of me is like, well, if we're going to see him live action, why'd they make him look like James Gunn? Frank Grillo doesn't look like that. And we saw the set photos from him in Superman. He doesn't look like how he looks in this. But then also really quick, going back to what I said earlier about knowing, because it just hit me, knowing that Wonder Woman does exist in this world. One of the villains in this series was Cersei. I always wanted to say Cersei, but Cersei. She's an Amazonian sorceress, one of Wonder Woman's main villains. So again, clearly Wonder Woman exists. Why aren't we getting a Wonder Woman movie or something Wonder Woman related? But also with this series, the thing that I like is even though we got exposition to these characters and being that it is canon to the DCU, it's showing that this world, in terms of like the DC superheroes, it already exists. We already have these monsters. We already got a cameo from Batman, so Batman is already active in this world. Superman is already going to be active in the DCU. Like I said, we got Cersei, so Wonder Woman is around, or the Amazons are around somewhere. At the end of this episode, we saw creatures like King Shark and things like that. He's talking about introducing Swamp Thing. So these creatures in this world is already established. So we're not going to get a whole lot of, oh, this is Superman's first time operating out of Metropolis and things like I love that. Kind of like the Justice League animated series, like these heroes were already operating before they became the Justice League. Metahumans already exist, so we're just getting right into it. Even like Clayface, we saw Clayface show up in this show, and then lo and behold, they announced that Clayface is getting his own solo movie. I find that curious, but again, a Batman-related character, but from the Harley Quinn show, again, Batman-related characters. Depending on how they do it, I mean, I like the character of Clayface, so who knows? Him carrying his own movie, that's interesting. And if you would have told me, like, when it was announced that Penguin was getting his own series, I was like, Penguin, out of all the characters, I would pick anybody but Penguin. And then that show ended up being pretty good. And so, who knows? But Penguin doesn't, maybe, we don't know. Because I heard they're talking about merging Matt Reeves' Batman to this DCU, but it hasn't been solidified. But for right now, Penguin doesn't exist in the DCU, but the Clayface show will. But I think one of my favorite episodes of the series was episode 3, the GI Robot episode, and played brilliantly by Alan Tudyk. Alan Tudyk is a voiceover legend, and like just in the fact that like his main motivation is Nazis, and then you really don't see any expression on his face because he has the same expression all the time. Just in the way his voice is, you still can kind of see and gauge his expression. And I almost kind of feel the same way about Dr. Phosphorus in a certain way. And that's, again, kudos and shout out to the voice actors. Like, even though their faces aren't moving, like Dr. Phosphorus is just a skull, GI Robot is just a robot without making any expressions, you still, almost kind of like in the Mandalorian way, you still get all the expression from the character, just in like their movement and everything like that. But unlike the Mandalorian where it's live action and you can have movement coaches and things like that, this is all animation. So shout out to the animation team and department. But I really love that episode with GI Robot and everything that he had to go through. And in the fact that, yeah, his motivation might be unaliving Nazis, and my friend Fantastic Frankie, shout out to Fantastic Frankie, the official co-host on the DC Studios podcast, but she brought up a really interesting point where at the end of that episode where he made that friend and that guy that brought him out of retirement or storage, and he found out his friend was part of a right-wing Nazi cult, he almost kind of sounded disappointed or upset or tired. Not excited. Yeah, he loves taking out Nazis, but he kind of felt disappointed, like, oh, you mean to tell me this guy is one too? Oh man. And I kind of felt that. He was wary about it. He was tired. But at the end of the day, he's got to do what he's programmed to do. And yeah, the great thing about this show, especially using these monsters and having them go through very human circumstances and moments, is like, this show, especially with the character of Weasel, epitomizes don't judge a book by its cover, because outside of Nina, because Nina wasn't necessarily accused of anything, she just looks other. She looks like a monster. But Weasel was accused of killing 12 children. And then we find out from episode 4 that Weasel, it is completely innocent of that crime. But because unlike the other characters, Weasel can't talk. Yes, it's sentient and can understand human language and thoughts to a certain extent, but he can't express himself. So we find out that, yeah, Weasel had absolutely nothing to do with the death of those children. As a matter of fact, Weasel was trying to save those children. So in many ways, Weasel is a hero. But yet, the people will never know. And even despite that, Weasel is constantly traumatized and feels guilty for that moment because he ultimately wasn't able to save any of those children. Ultimately because, man is trash, judging a book by its cover. And the same thing with Nina. Nina is the only one out of the group, besides Weasel, she's also the only one out of the group that hasn't murdered anyone, anything like that. She just looks different. And so because of that, she has to be locked away forever. Why? And it does also kind of suck, especially for her character standpoint, from a writing standpoint. And I get like, because, you know, the show has to make you feel something. But like, she again, same with Weasel. Well, no, because Weasel like ripped Cersei to shreds. Granted, he didn't kill her, but like Nina is one of the only characters that never really got her hands dirty. She never stooped to the level of trying to take somebody out, even for the greater good or anything like that. She was always kind. She was always the voice of reason. She was always a nice person, a genuine person, authentic person, a kind person. And yet she suffered because of that at the end of the series, or not the series, because it's going to be a season 2, but she suffered what she ended up being unalive. She was punished for being kind in this cruel world, sadly. And it just goes to show that she should have never been on this team. She was too good for this team. And I always thought that she was going to have like her moment to be a badass, because we saw that kind of with all the other characters. They had their moment to like show how powerful they are. The Bride, Weasel, Dr. Phosphorus, G.I. Robot. And Amanda Waller kind of teased it where Rick Flag was like, what can she do? She can't do anything. And then Amanda Waller was like, wait till you get her in water. And then we didn't really see her have that badass moment where like she got into water. She like took out a whole fleet of, like, that's what I thought was coming with this series. Like she finally gets into water and she takes out like a whole fleet of people and all this other. It's like, no, she was the most genuine and kind person and unwilling to murder in this entire series out of this entire group. Now, with that said, going to another character that I really enjoyed, the Bride. Part of me is like, there's a part of this that not necessarily uncomfortable, but it made me kind of cringe in the sense of like, when the Bride was created, she basically, and it kind of reminded me of the movie Poor Things, which I really enjoyed, which if you haven't seen my review for Poor Things, you can click that up here. But like when the Bride was created, she basically had the mind of a child. Yes, she had the body of an adult, a bunch of dead bodies, but she had the mind of a child. She had to learn and reacclimate herself. She had to learn how to speak, learn how to walk, learn how to see the world again. But yet her creator, Victor Frankenstein, I guess, they were still having sex. And I was like, does that make him a pedophile? Because technically speaking, she's an adult, but she's also not an adult. And they're still having sex. So is she actually giving consent? Being that she doesn't fully know what's happening around her. I was like, I don't know. But then I was like, does it count? Because she's technically not real. Like he created her. So like, but then I was like, but then is that I guess that's a slippery slope. I don't know. Those are just all the thoughts that were going in my head when I found out that they were sleeping together. And then in some ways, it kind of makes you question or not even feel bad for, because I don't feel bad for him, but at the same time, I do kind of feel bad for him. Eric Frankenstein, played by David Harbour, played greatly by David Harbour. But like, she was literally created for him as a companion because he was lonely. And also with the way he lashes out, like he's always on 100 no matter what, and like, but that's how he was created. So is it really his fault? Because he's not human. He's kind of a robot in a sense, but at the same time, he's still aware. But also at the same time, though, like, can he change because that's how he was created? I don't know, because I mean, I guess the Bride kind of changed and evolved, and she's not like he is. So I don't know, but hopefully she doesn't get together with him at a certain point, because he's a terrible person. I like love to watch him and love to watch his character, but he's a terrible person and abusive. And a narcissist and a monster, basically. He's a monster. But yeah, I really enjoyed Creature Commandos. I had fun. I enjoyed every single episode. And then also, I just, another thing I forgot to mention is like, yeah, like showing the greater DCU and teasing the greater DCU, that flashback or future vision that Cersei had, which I'm guessing is no longer relevant now that the Bride took out the princess. But we saw like Starfire in the background. We saw Blue Beetle in the background, Martian Manhunter, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. I think I saw Nightwing, a bunch of other characters. So obviously these characters either exist currently or will exist whenever that future timeline was supposed to have happened. So that's also teens into, we're going to get Teen Titans eventually and things that we've never seen in live action DC. So I can't wait for that. I would like to see like John Constantine, Zatanna. We're going to get the Authority, Aqualad. Maybe we'll get a live action Black Lightning. Who knows what the deal that DC has with Milestone, but maybe we can see Milestone characters show up in the DCU. Icon, Rocket, Static, Hardware. Who knows? Maybe we can see that. But either way, I'm excited for things to come. And like I said, I did enjoy Creature Commandos, and it makes me a little bit more excited to watch Superman coming out later this summer. But with that said, what did you guys think of season 1 of Creature Commandos? What was your favorite episode of Creature Commandos? Who's your favorite character of the Creature Commandos? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, if you can, if this is one of your first time checking out one of my videos, again, please check out the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow, and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.